EA and DICE have had it a little rough, to be honest. I mean, it all started when people didn't like them being historically inaccurate with having women in World War II. And you had the head dev guy, I don't know his name or anything. I couldn't even find anything on the internet about it. Basically calling the fans stupid. And then they went ahead and told them, like, hey, fans, if you don't like the game, don't buy it. And of course the whole thing happened like just last month where Battlefield 5 sales were down significantly more than Battlefield 1. And that was all due to EA and DICE wanting to pander to SJWs and feminists, and they wanted a virtual signal. Now, those same people they pandered to are going after them. And why? I guess because one of the DLCs for Battlefield 5 has you playing as a Nazi. You just can't have that. There it is. Battlefield 5's campaign tries to argue that World War II had very fine people on both sides. By Sam something or other. The article starts by saying this week EA releases The Last Tiger, the final mission in Battlefield 5's single-player campaign. Unlike the rest of the game, which has you fighting Nazis from various perspectives throughout World War II, The Last Tiger actually puts you in the jackboots of a German tank commander. As he tries to defend Western Europe from an American invasion. It's an odd choice considering the rise of far-right fanatics in the political world. Which, of course, far right, yes. Keep that myth alive as much as you can with your bullshit narrative that right-wing people, conservatives, are Nazis. Such fucking bullshit. But video games are no different than any other medium, and they should be able to tell stories from controversial perspectives. Yes, I totally agree with that. Sure, why not? Just like a film would. Yes, sure, why not? Of course, if games want to be respected like other mediums, they'll have to do a lot better than The Last Tiger. The article continues. Each of Battlefield 5's 4 mini-campaigns varies wildly in terms of quality and tone. First, Under No Flag is sort of a rollicking, darkly humorous adventure story about a British criminal who gets drafted into a secret military machine because he's good at blowing stuff up. The second, Nordly, is largely stealth-focused and has you play as a teenage girl, because teenage girls were all over the place in fucking World War II, right? In Norway, rescuing her scientist mom from a Nazi facility. Of course. Scientists. Nordly is phenomenal. Of course you would think that. You're playing as a fucking female, a teenage female at that. You probably claim yourself as a feminist too, Sam. And it makes a strong case that you should be able to ski in every first-person shooter. Okay? The third is
Today, Junior?
Fuck it.
Tirailleur.
And it's about
Senegalese
soldiers who joined the French army to hold back the invading Nazis. It's the most straightforward of the campaigns, having you fight from point A to point B, as the narrator explains that war is bad and foreshadows that the sacrifices you and your fellow soldiers make will be ignored by the rest of the French army. Blah, blah, blah. One thing that unites these campaigns is that they're all about people who were willing to give everything for what they believed in, whether it's stopping the Nazis from building an atomic bomb or defending the honor of Senegal. I'm not doing that joke again. And The Last Tiger is no different. Except for the fact that the belief its characters will die for is that the German people are the master race and deserves to rule the world. Sure, that Nazis did believe that, largely. I mean, I kind of feel like this part of the article here kind of contradicts itself here in a moment. The mission starts with your character, Peter Mueller, reminding his tank crew that the German people are all great and they will be unstoppable if they stay united. At least, like the United States. These words are immediately called into question when the tank rolls past a group of captured deserters who are all clearly being marched to an execution. This gives Mueller pause, but not enough to convince him to stop blindly following orders. Well, if it gives him pause, then clearly he's not just blindly following orders. Yes, he is following orders, but clearly there is something in him that makes him think about this stuff in some way. And those people, Nazis, being marched to an execution because they're deserters. I mean, if they're deserters, then yeah, sure, maybe they believe in what the Nazis wanted, with taking over the world, but didn't want to fight in the war for whatever reason. But maybe some of those deserters didn't believe in the Nazi way. So there's that. In fact, Mueller never stops blindly following orders until the last second of the story. When it becomes clear that the German army has abandoned them, the Americans are closing in, and the tank crew is truly fucked. Like, that's when it dawns on them, I guess. I mean, I guess anyone would feel that way, right? By the way, the game seems to make the Nazis look pretty fucking shitty if they're leaving their own soldiers behind. The driver runs off and gets shot in the back by your gunner for disrespecting the whole quote-unquote myth. I like here they it's a myth. Like they're able to acknowledge a myth when it's in this kind of context, prompting Mueller to remove the iron cross around his neck in disgust and surrender, which leads the gunner to shoot him as well. Spoiler alert? I guess that Sam here doesn't give a shit about spoiling it for anyone. It's clear that this is supposed to be an indictment of the fascist ideology that led all of these soldiers to be killed, but then there's some on-screen text about how countless real-life German soldiers refused to surrender that is presented in such a reverent tone that implies that doing so was somewhat heroic. I'm sure to them it was heroic. Mueller, most of the tank crew died because they started to lose faith. The soldiers who wouldn't surrender died because they chose not to lose faith. And the epilogue of The Last Tiger indicates that both options are equally noble. Well, I mean, yeah, sure, to a lot of the Nazi soldiers, it was noble and heroic for them to not give up. I mean, what can you do? I mean, maybe that's what the game developers are trying to go for here, showing that yeah, even though they were German soldiers, they were still humans. They were still believing in their country and their view and stuff like that. As horrible as it was, I mean, it makes sense. And I don't see anything wrong with them showing that aspect of Nazi soldiers. If Battlefield 5 were telling stories about almost any other war, that might be an interesting direction to take. But these are actual Nazis we're talking about. Sam, let me stop you right there. No, these are not actual Nazis. They're video game characters. They're NPCs, much like you seem to be. They're not actual Nazis. These are fictitious characters. I'm sorry, but that's probably one of the most ignorant things I've seen in this article. And here it goes on about how in the other campaigns, they want you to feel bad for the soldiers. Kind of blah, blah, blah here. I mean, he points out how there's no swastikas or anything like that. And that it doesn't name Adolf Hitler at all. Just quote-unquote leader. But it's impossible not to think about the atrocities the Nazis committed while you're playing as one and hammering American troops with a big tank gun. These soldiers didn't just die for the belief that they were the best. They also died for the belief that other unworthy people deserved to die. I mean, to be fair, the American soldiers and probably British soldiers and everyone else felt that the Nazis deserved to die, right? Battlefield 5 apparently tries to have it both ways, highlighting honorable German soldiers like Mueller alongside others that were simply duped by this dangerous ideology. But it never reckons with just how truly evil that ideology was. Being that I didn't play the game and I didn't play any of the game at all, any of the DLC or any of the campaigns or nothing at all, I'm going to go ahead and assume that in the game they reckon with just how evil the Nazi ideology was. I assume. I mean, I think it's pretty well known, at least by now, how horrible Nazis were. Does everything Nazi related have to be turned up to an 11 on how evil it is? Like when you see a character in a game and like, I don't know, they just say and do sinister stuff, and they have sinister looks. And like, if you saw a character in a video game with a curled up mustache and an evil laugh every time he says anything, I mean, it's like big neon signs pointing like, this is the bad guy, this is the bad guy. Do we really need that with Nazis? Don't we already know that they're the bad guys? The problem isn't that Battlefield is letting us play as Nazis. Of course not. As you can get randomly assigned to the Axis during any old online game. Well, maybe Sam stumbled onto something here. I mean, SJWs love looking for problems in any and everything that they can. Why don't they start bitching about these old games where you could play as Nazis? The real problem is the quote-unquote gotta hear both sides narrative presentation, particularly in our current political moment. Of course, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to bullshit time. I don't know what I'm going with there, whatever. It was August of last year when the standing U.S. president said that there were quote-unquote very fine people on both sides after a neo-Nazi hit and killed protester Heather Heyer with a car in Charlottesville, Virginia. And while Battlefield 5 certainly isn't trying to pander to racists the way Trump was, this still seems like an absolutely awful time to be making the argument that some Nazis were fine people who deserve sympathy.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Alright, this whole thing is so fucking bullshit here. Like, so much of this is bullshit. And this is just isn't me being a Trump supporter talking about this. The whole thing with the fine people on both sides thing, Trump made it very clear when he was talking there that he was not talking about the white supremacists that showed up and the Nazis that showed up and the, the other racist people that showed up. He was talking about the people they're protesting to keep the statue because, I don't know, maybe they just didn't want to live in 1984. Those were the people that he was saying that were fine, good people. People there that were protesting and not picking a side. And I love that this fucking douchebag, like, he does what all liberals love doing, is pulling up this Heather Heyer thing that got hit by some dude that was psychotic. Like, I mean, he had mental illness and whatnot. I'm not gonna get into that whole thing. Some piece of shit in this fight that happened between Antifa and fucking Nazis, which, by the way, both groups are fucking horrible pieces of shit. And Trump wasn't fucking pandering to any racists. I mean, this whole section here is such fucking bullshit. And I can't help but feel like this entire article was thought of just so that the Sam person could bring up all this bullshit from a year ago. Like, this has nothing to do with it. Like, Trump has nothing to do with this. Like, Trump hates video games. Trump's one of the fucking ignorant people that believe that violent video games causes people to be violent. Like leftists apparently do now. The game is clearly saying that fascism is wrong. No shit. You could have fooled me with the way you've been talking about this. How it didn't do enough to show Nazis were evil. But it's letting the fascists off the hook. Just like how Trump claiming that some neo-Nazis, which that's not what he said, are fine people who don't murder protesters, gives all other neo-Nazis a pass. Like, this whole thing is just fucking bullshit. He didn't say that. He didn't say anything about the neo-Nazis. He clearly said the people that were there that were not with the Nazis and white supremacists. He clearly fucking said that. This is all lying right here. Lying, garbage bullshit. And it fucking pisses me off. Like, you want to talk about narratives? This whole fucking paragraph is a giant leftist piece of shit narrative. Battlefield 5 presents a surprisingly nuanced take on World War II that is very far from the dull, rah-rah heroism of Call of Duty World War II campaign from last year, but it falls flat in The Last Tiger. There very well may have been German soldiers in World War II who were good people, like Peter Mueller, but it's hard to give a shit about that in 2018. You think? Yeah, it's 2018. It's time to stop fucking obsessing over Nazis and calling everyone you disagree with a Nazi and calling all Republicans Nazis and all conservatives Nazis. Nazis are bad. Wow. No shit. And there are far too many people in the world today who don't even believe that. Who? What people? The few Nazis that showed up at Charlottesville? How about the Nazis that showed up at other places where Antifa wasn't there to start fights with them? They had their stupid protests over their Nazi stupid white supremacist bullshit that the news didn't cover and no one else gave a shit about because they went, they protested, Antifa didn't show up, no one got violent, and then those fucking stupid Nazis went home. I mean, and this, he says people in the world that don't believe that Nazis are bad. Like, if there's so many fucking horrible Nazis, why do you keep going back to the one guy that ran over a pedestrian protesting as your one person to talk about? This article is bullshit. EA deserves this as far as I'm concerned. All the bullshit pandering that EA has done, all the fucking bending over backwards that Swedish developer DICE and all their fucking virtual signaling about like, yeah, we're gonna have women in our game. And all these fucking social justice warriors are going to applaud us for it. And we're going to feel great about ourselves for it. And now look, these same game journalists that were praising you for that shit are now fucking talking shit about your fucking game. They're not gamers just because they're game journalists. They don't fucking care. It's always, what have you done for me recently? What have you done for me lately? Yeah, you put fucking women in your game when there was probably mostly no women in World War II. And people didn't like it. And then the game journalists praised you for it. And now they're fucking talking shit because you had the nerve of showing Nazis as, I guess you could say human beings. I mean, they are human beings. I mean, yeah, they're horrible, shitty fucking people. They did horrible, shitty things. But at the end of the day, I mean, they were people thinking they were doing the right thing. Even if it was the wrong thing. Like a lot of people do today. Look at Antifa. Look at all the fucking terrorizing that they do of people. Silencing people. Just like Germans did. Fuck. Just the other day, man, I think it's Ohio or something, banned the song Baby It's Cold Outside. You know who else banned music? The fucking Nazis. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, thumbs up. If you don't like it, thumbs down. But if you thumbs down, give me some constructive criticism, please. I need it, and I want it. Thank you for being here. Whatever. This ending sucks.